Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Jon Machota of The Athletic. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus. And best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects. With 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Here's Elliott. He will get it. Touchdown Dallas as Elliott fought for it and has his 6th of the year.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments, with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One high school note. Mejia has hired former Forney assistant coach Brady Bond. Guess where he used to coach? Under Joey McGuire at Cedar Hill. Tristan Abram, of course, moved to Pittsburgh. Frank Sandoval was a part of Joey McGuire's staff at Cedar Hill, was there before Tristan Abram. He's also been at Lake Travis and elsewhere. So that's one of the newest hires here as we end the month of April. Jon Machota, theathletic.com. My God, John, we basically have said, just please somebody make a pick, and pretty soon we'll be able to see that as well. Do you get numb to it, or is this something that you kind of feel like this is a holiday or Christmas coming?
I'm just happy that it's finally they are going to be making a pick. That's my big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just is one of those like where it'd be different if like when the team's competitive and they make the playoffs. It's kind of it's not really on the top of your mind, but they've just been bad for most of the year to where even if they had made the playoffs, well, they would have got the 19th pick then, but they were just kind of always teetering where you kind of felt like they'd be in the top 10, and that's where they're at right now. And so now I'm just at the point where I just want them to start drafting some players so I have something different to write about.
Yeah, John, and it's not like we get any indications anymore because, you used to know that the 25 or 30 guys they could bring in for Dallas days or, these are interesting things. This guy was here then. Like, they don't release the list of Zoom calls they've had, do they?
They don't. And one of the reasons why is because with the 30 visits, there was limitations on how many players you could have at your facility. There isn't that with the Zoom calls. So because of that, they're only going to make available, some of the highlights that we've seen on the team website and things like that. But anybody that they're even thinking about drafting, they've probably met with, whether it be Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, the scouts, Will McClay. They've had conversations with through these Zoom calls. And so, Jerry Jones said yesterday that he thinks that he's gotten to know these players even better during the Zoom calls than in person, which I find hard to believe, but that was some positive spin Jerry was putting on it.
All right, John, so let's go. All right, the draft tomorrow starts. Jacksonville takes Trevor Lawrence, and then 17 quarterbacks are taken before the 10th pick because that seems like everything's a quarterback, and there's some other guys, offensive linemen, whatever else, wide receivers. At number 10, what do you think, knowing that there will be some sort of surprise or somebody moves up or down, what do you think, who will be available, in your opinion, among, let's say, 3 or 4 names at number 10?
I think it's going to come down to Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn. I think should be the top 2 on any predictions for the Cowboys at 10, and that's because they like both players. Both players still a major need. Both players have the size that you look for in a type of corner that really every team wants, but particularly Dan Quinn and this system that they've run for several years in Seattle. And so those 2 guys, I feel like, have kind of separated themselves from the pack. But if I was going to name another couple, Rashawn Slater would have to be a guy, just because if he was somehow to fall to 10, which I find it hard to believe that he will, but you never know. There's always a player or 2 that falls a little bit farther than we think they will. So if that's the case, he would have to be a player in consideration. And then I would say the other thing, and this would kind of be another wild card, would just be the fact of if one of those quarterbacks are there that, let's say, like a New England really liked at 15, then all of a sudden you got to factor in the possibility of a trade back if New England's going to give you multiple first-round picks and some more. Now, that's also because you might think that there's more than just 10 guys on your board that you really like. Stephen Jones said it's around 15 guys, so maybe that's a possibility. But right now, I just think it comes down to Surtain or Horn.
John, do you think that the team starts getting aggressive in the third round with those 2 picks and moving up and kind of shaking things up?
It's a good question because I don't even think that they can say as of right now. I think it all depends on what players go in the different rounds, because here's the thing. It's like all these position groups aren't equal. And so if there are, let's say, defensive tackles, a position they clearly need, there's no elite defensive tackles really in this class. That's the best one's probably Christian Barmore from Alabama, and he's not projected to go until about 20 at the earliest, and that's just so rare for that position. Usually if you're the best defensive tackle in a class, you're probably going top 10, top 15. And so let's say that there isn't a big run on defensive tackles, and all of a sudden you sit there in the third round and there's a player you really like there. That's a situation where I could see them possibly packaging up something to move up a little bit, or maybe even an edge rusher, because there's such a variety of edge rushers out there and a variety of ways that they fit different schemes. If there's one that they think is a perfect fit for what they're doing and they can't believe he's on the board still, maybe early in the third, maybe then you package something up. But as of the way it sits right now, I don't think that they know for sure. It's kind of out of their hands a little bit. It depends on the runs that go on certain players and where they have them graded on their board, because their board might have, 7 corners that they really like and only 3 defensive tackles and only 4 linebackers. Well, if all one of those positions gets wiped out and we're sitting here in the third round and they're like, man, we had a second round grade on this, defensive tackle. Can't believe he's still there. Well, let's move up and try and make sure we secure him. In a way, that's what happened in 2014 in the second round with Marcus Lawrence. Is it just he fell to that second round and they were like, man, he was one of the 3 top edge rushers we had in this class. We didn't think he'd still be here. So they packaged up some picks with Washington, went up and got Lawrence, and obviously that's proven to be a good selection for him.
Who are you worried about wrecking the Cowboys' choice of maybe Surtain or Horn more? The Panthers or the Broncos?
I think today's trade swings it in the Broncos' favor, just because now getting Teddy Bridgewater, although I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is all of a sudden, you got your franchise quarterback, you're all set there, you don't have to worry about anything else. But with him and Drew Lock, like they probably are set there for right now at quarterback. So they would probably be the number one. But both teams, Carolina could certainly use a corner too. And I would say right there's your doomsday scenario for the Cowboys, is that in both those picks, it goes back to back Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn right before they go on the board. And if that's the case, then you're probably reaching for maybe an edge rusher or maybe even Christian Barmore, who, like I said, isn't a guy that's projected going to the 20s. But if you can't trade back, that might be something you have to consider, or the linebacker out of Penn State, Micah Parsons. So yeah, if you're trying to find a worst case scenario for the Cowboys right now, I would say that Horn and Surtain go in the 2 picks right before they go on the board.
John, I know this isn't draft related, but what did you think of Sean Lee finally hanging up the cleats?
Yeah, it wasn't a complete surprise, just because you kind of see over the last couple of years, a guy like Sean Lee, he doesn't really want to be a backup. He wants to be out on the field playing, contributing, and helping the team win. And, as the season had gone on these last couple of years, he was starting to get, less and less playing time, and then obviously injuries and things like that. They just keep adding up. And, so, it's obviously disappointing that his career comes to an end like this, because we've all seen what the ceiling is. We've seen when he's at his best, he's one of the elite linebackers in the NFL. And it just is disappointing that you didn't get to see that as long as you would have liked. And to be honest with you, as long as Sean deserves, because I will use Sean Lee as as a sports example, probably for the rest of my life, because he's the type of guy that is just meticulous about his diet and the way he works out and the way he trains and prepares and watches film and has the love of the game. And he's a perfect example that makes me believe in every sport that there's just some guys that are injury prone and they can't do anything about it. Sean Lee lived with these trainers. He was always around them. It wasn't for a lack of effort, and he just couldn't stay healthy. And it's disappointing. You feel for the guy, because, being around him as you guys have too, that there's probably nobody that loves the game more than him.
Yeah, he was just soaking it.
And I think that's what kind of sucks, is that he is a guy who seems like a good dude and works so hard and loves it so much, and he's just been so riddled with,
Yeah, he got hurt in a non-padded practice in the spring one time.
That's, the crazy thing to me is just how, I remember asking him one time, and this was in the off season, about what his diet is and stuff like that. And in the off season, he would he was so strict about everything he ate, and he'd be like, I'll allow myself like a cheat meal here and there, and I'm like, so what's your cheat thing? He's like, occasionally I'll have like a half of a dark chocolate bar or something, and that was it. That's his big cheat thing. Like I'm just like, I'm gonna eat that every day. Like I don't know, like I don't know, for a guy that he just deserved better, I guess is the best way I could put it. Like, I don't know that you could have done any more than he did. And it just seemed like, here's the other thing. It wasn't like it was just one injury. It was like one thing after another. And you just saw him play at such a high level that you were like, if this guy could stay healthy, he could be a Ring of Honor guy, could be potential Hall of Famer. And the thing that you'll always go back to is that, and will be tied to his name, is the fact that the Cowboys like taking chances in the second round on guys with injury history. And so for the next decade or so, people will bring up Sean Lee's name when they take a chance on somebody who has an injury history, fair and unfair.
Yeah, John, I would put the over under at him being a defensive coordinator. Maybe not for the Cowboys. I mean, who knows? But in the NFL at 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, last year he had talked about it a little bit during the season, like, after a practice, just being asked about, his future long down the lines after football. And he certainly was interested in the coaching aspect of it. And Jerry Jones yesterday made it clear that, they would obviously be very interested in having him on the staff in the future if that's what he wants to do. But that's the thing about Sean Lee. He's not going halfway on any of this. He's not going to just sit there and be like, yeah, I'm on a vacation. He's got a place up in Southern California, I think in the Malibu area. He's not going to sit there and live there in the offseason. And yeah, I'll show up for the games. Like, Sean Lee's going to be all in or he's not going to be in at all. And right now, I don't think he's ready to give that time to it. But once he is, he'll be first guy in the building, last guy to leave. And I would be stunned if he isn't just a fan, an amazing coach. Yeah,
it's just that's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to do, and he's good at it. Anything else, Craig, for John?
Randomly, John, what's life been like without Dak Prescott contract talks over the last couple of months?
It's been great, Like I love the draft. I always have. I know I've told you guys this before, and so as soon as that was done, it was like I could go full steam ahead into draft talk and writing about the draft and the speculation with the draft, and so that stuff interests me a little more just because I'm not paying Dak the money. It's the team paying it. It's just a matter of when were they going to pay him the money or not. They would obviously be in a situation like Denver if they didn't pay him. And do you want to be in Denver's situation where you're kind of bringing in Drew Lock, might be your guy, maybe trading for Teddy Bridgewater? Like, I mean, it was a no-brainer decision. It was just like, when are they going to get it done? So the fact that they got it done, now there's the draft, and then after the draft is over, then it'll be full speed ahead into, okay, so what's he doing now? Like, is he going to be able to do 11 on 11? Is he going to be ready to go the first day of training camp? Is he going to participate in any of the preseason games? Or are you going to save him for week one? Like, what's he able to do now? And so that'll be the story going forward. But as of what they said yesterday, he remains on track, if not a little bit ahead. So obviously that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's a great deal. It's a great deal. Hey, John, thank you very much. Good luck handling all of it, the covering, the picks, and all that other stuff in between. Thanks for your time. Jon Machota, theathletic.com. I just saw this note from Jane Slater, who works for the NFL Network.